Welcome! Today we witness the most daring military gamble in all of Roman history. Picture this: 60,000 Romans trapped in hostile lands, facing a massive army of 300,000. They are entirely surrounded, squeezed tightly between a giant fortress and a massive force from behind. Retreat brings certain death. Attack ensures total ruin. How could Caesar survive this absolute nightmare? Instead of fleeing, he built a second solid wall, locking himself inside the deadliest cage ever made. The year is 52 BC. The devastating Gallic wars are finally reaching their brutal and chaotic end. 80,000 warriors, led by Vercingetorix, retreat to a giant hilltop fort. This is Alesia, a truly impregnable stronghold, towering over the deep and rugged valleys. Julius Caesar arrives with 6 veteran legions, roughly 60,000 highly trained and strong men. Looking at the steep, rocky slopes, Caesar knows a direct frontal assault would bring absolute destruction. According to ancient records, the brilliant Roman commander decides to use pure engineering. Instead of drawing his heavy sword, he strictly orders his men to dig massive and deep trenches. His cold, calculated plan is simple: surround the entire mountain and slowly starve the army. The mighty Roman war machine shifts gears. Thousands of soldiers transform into tireless engineers. They strip the local landscape bare, cutting down whole ancient forests to gather timber for walls. Vercingetorix watches from the high stone walls, knowing his proud people lack enough supplies. He stands proud and defiant in his shining armor, refusing to ever surrender his home. Yet beneath his brave face, the Gallic king deeply feels the tightening grip of this massive trap. Caesar rides along the perimeter, carefully inspecting every deep ditch and watchtower. His bright red cloak blows in the hot wind as he calculates the vast mathematical distance. The legions work day and night, sweating in the dark dirt, digging a massive and defensive moat. They divert local rivers to fill the outer trenches, creating an endless barrier of mud. Beyond the flowing water, they construct a towering wooden palisade with sharp battlements. Yet Caesar is quite paranoid. He knows simple walls are never enough to stop a desperate army. So he designs a vast landscape of hidden traps, turning green fields into a waking nightmare. They plant thousands of sharp wooden stakes in deep pits, hidden safely under branches and loose dirt. These hidden and deadly traps, called lilies by the Romans, are designed to break charging horses' legs. Further out, they scatter sharp iron spikes on the grass to pierce the bare feet of the Gallic warriors. The massive perimeter stretches for 18 kilometers, wrapping around the giant fortress. Inside the walls, the harsh reality of the siege sets in. The food stores are shrinking very fast. Would you have the mental strength to slowly watch your mighty enemy build the cage that ends your life? This psychological warfare is Caesar's greatest weapon. He fights with pure patience, not violence. The deadly trap is fully set. The giant lock clicks into place. Alesia is isolated now. Autumn finally arrives, bringing cold winds and severe hunger to the 80,000 souls inside. The once mighty Gallic warriors are reduced to eating small handfuls of grain just to survive. The freezing cold air is filled with the painful sounds of weeping children and fading animals. Vercingetorix makes a truly heartbreaking choice to save his brave fighting men from tragic ruin. He orders the women, children, and the elderly to leave, hoping the Romans will show some mercy. Thousands of starving civilians walk down, begging Roman gods to take them as humble slaves for food. But Julius Caesar stands high on his tall wooden tower, looking down with cold and truly ruthless eyes. He strictly forbids his loyal soldiers from opening the gates. Absolutely no one crosses the lines. The helpless and starving people are trapped in the barren wasteland right between two massive armies. They slowly perish from hunger in the cold mud, right before the weeping eyes of their beloved husbands. It is a heartbreaking scene of unimaginable cruelty, showcasing brutal and total war. Vercingetorix fiercely grips his heavy sword in rage, forced to watch his people fade in the dirt. The Gallic morale completely shatters. The terrible scent of ruin hangs heavy over the valley. Caesar waits very patiently. He knows that human hunger is a weapon sharper than any sword. His veteran troops remain well-fed and highly disciplined, resting securely behind wooden walls. They deeply polish their armor and sharply hone their heavy blades, waiting for the surrender. Yet history often turns on a deeply hidden secret. Vercingetorix has one final trick. Just before the Romans completely closed the Iron Ring, he smuggled his fastest cavalry through the dark. These brave riders quickly vanished into the dark night, carrying a plea for help to every tribe. They deeply begged the proud chiefs to unite their fighting banners and march on Alesia at once. Now, as freezing winter approaches, Caesar notices a sudden change across the silent valley. The hard ground begins to tremble slightly. A completely massive cloud of dust rises on the horizon. The terrified Roman sentries blow their horns in panic. Messengers sprint toward the command tent. Caesar quickly rushes to the highest rampart, his red cloak snapping as he peers into the distance. What he sees makes the blood run completely cold in his veins. A nightmare is marching right toward him. 250,000 angry Gallic warriors have quickly answered the call for his head. The mighty hunters have just become the helpless hunted. The Roman army is trapped in enemy land. Completely surrounded by 250,000 angry men, most commanders would panic and run away. If you were standing in Caesar's boots, facing absolute destruction, would you quickly call a retreat? But Julius Caesar is no ordinary mortal man. He makes an insane tactical decision. He firmly commands his exhausted men to turn around and build a second wall facing the outside. They must quickly construct another 21 kilometers of tall walls while the enemy is near. The massive Roman camp erupts into total chaos. Soldiers dig frantically, covered in sweat and mud. They carry massive wooden logs on bleeding shoulders, driven by the sheer terror of total ruin. This is the famous Contravallation line, a giant outer shield built to protect their vulnerable backs. Now, 60,000 exhausted Romans are locked inside a giant ring, sandwiched between two armies. On the inside, 80,000 starving Gauls. On the outside, 250,000 warriors. It is a truly brilliant but terrifying cage. There is no way out. They must win, or they all fall. The massive relief army finally arrives, filling the plains with terrifying cries and shining iron. Vercingetorix sees the brave rescue force from his high tower. A sudden surge of hope fills his tired heart. The furious Gauls launch a massive coordinated attack, striking Roman walls from both the inside and out. The violent battle begins with a deafening roar. Thousands of fast arrows darken the sky like a storm. Roman ballistas aggressively fire massive bolts, tearing through the dense crowds of charging warriors. The fierce barbarians throw themselves onto the spikes, their bodies forming tragic bridges over traps. Inside the ring, Vercingetorix leads a desperate charge, trying to rapidly smash through the inner gates. The brave Roman legionaries tightly lock their shields together, holding the thin line with fierce discipline. They stab with their short swords, pushing back the screaming tide of desperate and completely starving fighters. For 3 whole days, the absolute devastation continues. The trenches run deep with crimson and heavy mud. The Roman defenses hold, but the sheer massive weight of numbers begins to exhaust Caesar's veteran troops. The angry Gauls finally discover a sudden weak point in the outer wall, where hills break the defenses. 60,000 highly elite Gallic warriors fiercely launch a sudden surprise assault on this weak spot. At the exact same time, Vercingetorix attacks from the inside, creating an immense and deadly pressure. The Roman lines begin to terribly buckle and break. The wooden walls catch fire, sending black smoke in the air. Legionaries fall under the crushing weight of the horde. The grim situation is totally catastrophic. Caesar deeply watches from his post, realizing his entire campaign is about to end in total ruin. He fully knows that sending orders is no longer enough. The tired men need their general to fight in the mud. Caesar firmly draws his sword and throws on his bright red cloak, ensuring every soldier can see him clearly. He fiercely rides directly into the violent heart of the raging battle, shouting orders to his broken men. Seeing their beloved commander risking his life in the mud, the Romans suddenly find a new burst of strength. They aggressively push back with the ferocity of cornered wolves, slamming their shields into barbarian lines. The tragic fighting is incredibly brutal and personal. Swords swiftly shatter, men fiercely grapple in the dirt. Caesar's presence is pure magic. He stabilizes the collapsing line just long enough for his horses to move. He had secretly sent his German horsemen out the back gate, circling deeply around to hit the Gauls from behind. The sudden cavalry charge shatters the Gallic morale. Fearing a fresh army has finally arrived, they flee. The Romans strike down the fleeing warriors, turning the green hills into a massive graveyard of broken men. The relief army is completely vanquished. The massive coalition crumbles into absolute dust in a single day. Seeing his absolute last hope totally vanish, Vercingetorix fully knows the war is lost. The bitter end has come. The bright morning sun slowly rises over a valley filled with crimson, cold iron, and broken dreams of freedom. Inside the heavily starving fortress, the surviving Gallic warriors sadly drop their heavy iron weapons. Vercingetorix slowly puts on his incredibly fine armor one last time, to proudly meet the Roman conqueror. He bravely mounts his mighty warhorse and rides very slowly out of the wooden gates toward the giant Roman camp. Caesar proudly sits high on his judgment seat, fully surrounded by his totally exhausted but victorious men. The defeated Gallic king slowly circles the Roman leader, then steps down and throws his sword into the deep mud. Without saying a single word, he strips off his truly magnificent armor and gently kneels down very quietly. The absolute greatest threat to the Roman Republic has finally been fully captured and entirely broken. Caesar shows absolutely no mercy at all. The brave Celtic warriors are brutally sold as slaves to the troops. Over 1 million people tragically fell in Gaul, and another million completely lost their absolute freedom. The famous double wall strategy proved that brilliant Roman engineering could effectively defeat nature itself. Julius Caesar proudly returns to Rome, not just as a highly successful general, but as a truly living god. The massive wealth and power he gained from this brutal victory will fully destroy the Old Republic forever. He will boldly cross the Rubicon River, strongly spark a massive civil war, and claim total dominance. As for Vercingetorix, the heroic and proud king sadly rotted in a totally dark prison cell for 6 long years. He was eventually brought out to be proudly paraded in a triumph, and then completely silenced forever. The ancient world was forever shaped by the mud, the crimson stains, and the giant wooden walls of Alesia. Alesia's victory secured Rome's massive power for centuries, but it came with a truly horrific and tragic cost. Was this epic siege a brilliant stroke of genius, or merely the ruthless cruelty of a tyrant? Let us know below. If you greatly enjoyed this truly epic battle, please like this video, safely share it, and fully subscribe to our channel.